Third down and 20.
What's going on? Welcome back. 3rd and 20 podcast, episode 58. My name is Frank Entwistle. We got the main man himself, Mr. Steed. Steed, how you doing? What's going on, man?
Doing pretty good. Ready to get started.
Dude, we're going to jump into this. We're going to be doing our Heisman winner picks. We kind of talked about the quarterbacks, the guys that we liked, guys that we didn't like. But now we're going to go in quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, anyone. Heisman winner picks. We're both taking quarterbacks. That's kind of why I alluded to the quarterbacks before. Steve, I like your pick a lot. I think that you should start because this is a guy that I really liked on tape that I had seen. I think he's a guy that has a huge chance of dramatically boosting his draft stock after the season, especially because they only played 4 games this year. Why don't you get into your pick?
Well, I'm taking Jaden Daniels out of Arizona State. First comes to first, the Heisman's got to be on a contending team, and I like ASU this year to not just to be good, but also to win the Pac-12 and to be around that college football playoff talk, depending on whether, it's a 9-3 Pac-12 win or a 10-2. If they can go 11-1 and get a shot to go in there, I think it solely relies on Jaden Daniels' play and the way he's really looked ever since Herm Edwards has taken over and he's been his number one guy. He's lit up the scene on my hand, and I think this is the season now where you get you're used to the COVID protocol. You're going to play more than 4 games. You're back in your natural routine. This kind of guy with this amount of talent, running ability, strong arm, we all know, can really flourish on the scene for ASU. And, I think it was yesterday when we were talking about it and making our picks, and when I was sold on Jaden Daniels, he was the second name added to the watch list. So they get him at plus 3,500 right now. I think it's a great value buy, especially a guy who's going to be there at the end of the day.
Yeah, he was a guy that was definitely one of the dudes I was heavily considering. I really like Jaden Daniels. If I was playing in Devy leagues, Devy Superflex leagues, he's a dude that I would have targeted. I would still be targeting if he's there. And he's a guy that I just think is going to have massive improvement. Like you saw, there's so many quarterbacks that, not necessarily because he's not a guy that's going to come out of nowhere, but I think that a lot of people almost think that last year he had a bad season, but it was more of just an incomplete than anything bad, right? They were just they just didn't play enough games, and everyone else kind of started getting hyped, the guys that actually did play a full schedule.
Dude, you can't really knock off any of these Pac-12 teams for the way they play because they were the first conference to come out last year and say they weren't going to play, So you put that into these young guys' minds, okay, but we're not going to play. Then they're not game ready, And then of course, the Pac-12 was a little more not lenient, more strict on the COVID than you would say an SEC school who Bama ended up playing 14 games or 13 games or how many it was. And Arizona State got 4 games. That's not a tell. Last season was a throwout for many of these schools, unless you were playing even in the Big Ten, there was a handful of teams that missed a lot of games, like Wisconsin. But, if you weren't in that top 6, top 10 category last year that actually played every single game of their schedule, then I wouldn't believe in it.
Well, didn't the Big Ten play 6 games, or was that just Ohio State because they played the playoff games?
Yeah, Ohio State ended up only playing, with the Natty included, 8 games. I think.
Okay, so they did have 6. But that's still 2 more games, though.
Yeah, it's still 2 more games, and also, you knew Ohio State was going to be there at the end. Dabo said, he was against putting Ohio State in there, but then again, Ohio State kicked Dabo's ass. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I'm saying the Pac-12 came out and said to these players, hey, man, you're not playing this year. We are forfeiting the season. And then when they saw everybody else, they try to jump the gun. And I think just for a mental mindset, it takes a lot for a player to get back into a week by week preparation for games.
Yeah, just thinking you're not going to play. All right, my pick. I really like your pick. Jaden Daniels was a guy that I was actually really thinking about taking, but I'm not going to take the same guy as you. I'm going to go for someone more bottom of the barrel. I'm going to go Dylan
Okay.
Gabriel. This is a little. I really don't think he's the guy that's going to win it. Kind of like you said, the Heisman is almost like, you got to be kind of flashy. You got to be playing for a good team. And I'm not really sure that I get the good team aspect out of UCF with Dylan Gabriel. Like, not that they're not a good team or a good program. It's just that top tier, elite level team, that team that's around the college football playoff. I'm not sure
Yeah,
UCF is going to be
it's
around there.
just a
But
non-power 5, you know.
yeah. But man, Dylan Gabriel to me is a guy that I think is going to absolutely light it up next season. And just kind of from a numbers perspective, is a dude that I think could definitely be around there just because
Mm-hmm.
he's a guy I think is going to carry that football team. He's a dude that's going to put up numbers every game. And maybe if they just get on a streak and get hot, they could be in that not necessarily in the college football playoff conversation, but be in a conversation for, one of those really good level bowl games
Yeah, the
and
New Year
have his
Six.
name around the Heisman talks. And at plus 6,000, the risk is priced in for me.
Well, I like the pick. I mean, UCF, it seems ever since, Scott Frost won the Natty there. When
You always make that joke when you talk about UCF.
dude, because they did. They won the Natty. They went undefeated. They beat Auburn. But you know, they'll be in the conversation now. Is their team going to be as talented as that team was back then? No. I don't know. I would have to really look at the roster. I know UCF has been just a very good, well balanced
Yeah,
program
they're a
that's
good
been
program.
top 25 ever since.
Wait,
But
real quick to clarify, Steed, because I'm not sure people maybe not everyone knows that joke, but basically a couple of years ago, UCF went undefeated and then they won their bowl game and they were all pissed off that they didn't get was the college football playoff was around then, right? And they just
yeah,
didn't get
yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah.
And then they
They didn't
kind of
get in.
just self-proclaimed themselves national champions. They
Well,
didn't actually win it, but they were like, "Yeah, we're national champions, baby." So
Well,
like, that's
the
the joke.
funny thing is like going undefeated in any kind of level of football is challenging and tough, and you got to give credit when credit's due. But I can't remember the team they played. I think it was like Buffalo or like Marshall or something. It took them to like triple OT, and they beat them to win like their 10th game in a row. And then you just got Alabama over here like beating the hell out of Georgia, and it's like there's levels to it, but I still think they were the Natty. I think they deserve co-ownership in that national championship.
All right. All right. So those are our Heisman picks. Let's get into another college football segment. So Steed, there's actually a lot of college football to talk about. Let's do the Oklahoma and Texas news. So
Okay.
apparently Oklahoma and Texas, I didn't see this report, but you did, want to join the SEC.
Yeah, it came out today, like this morning, uh, saying that Oklahoma and Texas like reached out to the committee and seeing if they could be pushed into the SEC. I don't like the article didn't really say much about it. Just they were rather like reaching out and just want to join the conference. But I'm down. Like, listen, get Vandy out. I'm tired of seeing Vandy go 1-11 every year and get absolutely demolished. If you put in Oklahoma, and the reason why I think Oklahoma and Texas want to be put in, and more so Oklahoma, because like they've been more of a contender these last few years, is they're tired of when they reach that little 4 seed and win the Big 12. It's just like, oh well, the other SEC school is better than them. And like, okay, but like they want to put more respect on their names. Like, okay, like they think we can't play with the best of the best, then put us in that conference where we play the best. And for Texas's hand, I think, Texas's football has been like everybody says it's back and then it's not back and then blah blah this. Well, like they just never had like the recruiting classes like they've had in the past, and not since Colt McCoy left. And you see where Texas A&M left to the SEC, how much success they have had especially in recruiting just in the state of Texas. And if you're UT, just, Texas Longhorns own the state of Texas in recruiting, and you're losing out to A&M just because maybe, they're in the better conference. I could see like that is a big reason why too. They think if they could get back in the relevancy of winning the state of Texas in recruiting, that they could also be in that college football playoff S tier.
I mean, from an SEC football perspective, I'm not going to disagree with that. I think that especially Oklahoma deserves or should be, if they want to, they should be able to be in the SEC for the reasons mentioned. And to be honest,
They
like
had the resume.
I actually kind of like Texas being in the SEC too, because
I
I
do
mean
too.
I would love seeing that Texas A&M rivalry really like, dude, top notch
Renewed.
center stage.
Yeah.
I think it would be great. The only problem is that you're really shafting the Big 12. I just wonder what they would do and the other teams in that conference would do. How do they adjust? What happens to are they just going
There'd
to
be
add two teams to the SEC? Are they going to
Yeah,
kick out a team like you said with Vandy?
I think there would be a little bit of a realignment in the conferences. Maybe you see some of those non-power 5 schools get a shot at the Big 12, like now geographically speaking, it really doesn't have to make sense, right? Texas is nowhere like really in the southeast, but like yeah, we put them there. I don't know. I think it would be interesting. You could take out teams of the SEC too, though. Like Vanderbilt needs to be gone. Like this is going to hurt to say, but South Carolina, like, I mean, why are you not just?
I don't think you should put South Carolina in the same tier as Vandy, but I'm not necessarily going to
Oh,
heavily
not like
disagree with
where
you.
like Vandy go like, but like South Carolina, I always thought belongs in the ACC. That's where your big time rival is. Like I find like your pace of play fits that just better. Like it is nice every year you have to like you play the Georgias, the Floridas, but majority of the year you're getting just steamrolled. So what are we doing here?
I don't know.
Like
I'm not necessarily sure that you need to kick out anyone in the SEC. Obviously, like
just 16
Vanderbilt's just a
teams is
laughing stock.
crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. I don't really see. That's the problem, is that I don't disagree with it from would I enjoy Oklahoma and Texas being in the SEC? Yeah, I would love it, and I would love to see like these newer rivalries and old rivalries get back at it. I think it'd be great for college football. I think the problem is that logistically, how is this going to get done? And I don't want to see the Big 12 just be like a shafted conference at the same time. I don't think that that's necessarily fair to them either.
I
So
mean, the Big 12's fun though. Like, also, if you want no defense and just a ton of offense, you turn on 12 o'clock, and there you go. You got Oklahoma State versus whoever, and there's 1,000 yards in that game. I don't know, mate. Like, what if you didn't even join the SEC? What if Texas and Oklahoma are like, screw it, like let's reach out to some of these other programs and start our own conference?
I don't know. That'd be crazy. But I mean, honestly, though, if I was a team like an Oklahoma State, maybe even a Baylor, a Kansas State, like, dude, I might like those guys leaving just because,
Oh, I definitely do.
dude,
Iowa State.
TCU,
I mean,
because that might be exactly what TCU needs to really like take that next step. All of a sudden, because I think at first you're going to be like, oh, well, the conference, like the entire conference prestige goes down, right? If we're going to take some NCAA football terms. But at
yeah,
the
it
same
does.
time, if you're able to develop yourself as a powerhouse in the conference, like, dude, you take two big time players out of there. So that
Well,
could be big
that
for one of those programs if they're able to really be that contender. And you could say, listen, dude, we are the team in this conference. And if we're the team that is in this conference, we're already a good program before, but now we are the guys. Our road to being in the college football playoff and for getting
it's a
more
lot
looks for
easier.
you to be drafted and all that, it's like, yeah, the total conference might not be as good, but those other teams might fill it in, right?
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
what I'm
like
thinking.
you know, what you were kind of explaining is what like Clemson has now, right? It's just listen, we're in the ACC and we're the best we're the best program in that conference. Like no one even comes close. You can look at the scores. We beat the crap out of everybody. Now, Dabo kind of built that up during time where he was able to get some really huge recruiting classes, and that comes with along with the coach and the staff being able to still recruit all these high powered like
Yeah.
caliber. So like like it could be like a program like if TCU like went on a run and like became the guy in the Big 12. Are you still going to be a top? You got to be top 10 in recruiting still, and also like, am I just going to more look at you like a UCF who runs his conference or something like that, rather not like you're a Clemson, But like the
No,
only way
I
you do
agree.
that,
It's just
well, the only way you do that is if you do what Clemson did, go out there and win a couple rings.
easier said than done, but
Oh,
I kind of like
100%.
what you were saying, right? That you don't necessarily need to be the SEC or need to be in the SEC to have a good program. And the ACC is the perfect example of that, and where you have good teams or good teams. You have one insane team,
You
and
got
then
one
every year
great
you
team.
usually have like one or two good teams, if that, and then everyone else is average at best. Right. And then those good teams just will flip flop, right? Like, okay, some years Virginia Tech will be good. And then some years, oh, Miami finally has another good team. And then, okay, last year a UNC, right? Maybe a BC every once in a while. But you just don't need a ton of top tier teams to have that reputation. So I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass. Maybe those like Oklahoma leaving just gives you, you're able to win your conference a couple of times. Maybe that gives you that extra edge where if Oklahoma just becomes an above average SEC team, maybe they lose that leg up where it's like, hey, we were steamrolling everyone. We can give you great tape. Like, that's kind of where I'm coming from. Maybe that's wrong, though.
I think if Oklahoma joined the SEC, and especially if they still had Lincoln Riley, not I think what would happen. First of all, they would get better like recruits. Or, like they already have a top 10 class. That's not a problem, but like it would just get a little better. Like especially on the defensive side of the ball, because you can look at when A&M joined and where they're at now. Like the defensive side of the ball is just improved drastically, and I think that's become with them just being having the SEC name to them,
Yeah,
and you just
definitely.
get like a little bit better prospects. I think if Oklahoma joined, though, regardless of if they joined today, I mean, they're better in Florida, they're better in Georgia. I think they're like around 3 or 4. They're probably neck and neck with Georgia. I would give them that. I'm still going to put them better in Georgia because screw Georgia. It would be Bama, A&M, Oklahoma for me, and
The
Texas.
thing
Like,
is, though, is that no matter what Oklahoma or Texas does, right, they're always going to get the good recruits. And like you said, it might just put that even better. I'm just curious at what's going to happen to the teams that are left in the Big 12. Because,
I mean, they got to be
dude,
happy.
if
It's like, dude,
Texas and
okay,
Oklahoma
whatever.
joins, like, first off, Oklahoma's at that point. They could go join Conference USA and still get the same level of recruits, right? They're just at that point.
Yeah.
Where it's like, dude, they have the coach, they have the reputation, they have like they're in that elite tier where it's like them, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. Yeah, Alabama and Clemson and maybe even Ohio State are slightly a leg up, but Oklahoma is closer to those schools than they are any other school in their conference.
Well, yeah.
I mean, dude,
I,
and then
I
now they finally have a defense. Like they've been getting a good defense. All right, but you want to
one more thing about it is just like the SEC is definitely like wanting this to happen because you got to think about how much money, first of all, Texas and Oklahoma would bring into the SEC,
yeah.
and this is why the Big 12 would hate it. You got Oklahoma, who's been pretty much the Big 12 powerhouse since the playoff was invented. They've had a couple number one picks come out of there, and Kyler and Baker, and just like the money they bring in it, and also you lose Texas, who brings you in a lot of money. Yeah, Texas hasn't done anything crazy in some
Yeah,
time,
they
but it's
just
still
got the
Texas
brand name,
football.
dude. You think of college
Yeah,
football, like one of the
you think
first
of
teams you're thinking
Texas.
of is Texas.
So
Um,
like they would hate that,
it would
and
kill the Big 12, it feels
unless
like.
unless like the Big 12 was able to add like Ohio State, a Clemson, or a Bama, or something on that sense, they wouldn't be able to replace that much money. No
Or if one of
problem,
those
no
other
shot.
programs somehow built up, like I was saying, but I don't think it logistically makes sense. but I do want it to happen, even though it might kill the Big 12. But like, honestly, I'd just rather see the SEC become absolutely insane
I
than
mean, if it does
worry
happen, it's
about
going to
what
be
happens with the
crazy.
Big 12, you know?
It's already no weeks off unless you're playing Vanderbilt. But like, if you add those two teams to the mix, I mean, add them to the East, dude. The East needs a little like needs something
They
else
need one more
besides.
powerhouse. That
Yeah,
one.
you need something else besides Georgia or Florida. Like Florida last year, but like you need that one other team, like how the West has Auburn on a good year, but you also have A&M and Bama, of course, and Ole Miss will be kind of
Yeah, Ole Miss is a
there for
good
some
team.
reason.
Like I just think that the East has more weaker teams than the West does consistently. I think that's
Yeah,
the
because
problem.
I mean, South Carolina, like they were on the downfall. Hopefully, they're on the uptrend, but it would be some time until they get back into any kind of relevancy. Missouri's kind of like on that uptrend too. It's just
Mizzou is so inconsistent, dude.
the thing is, I kind of like where Mizzou's at because Mizzou, like coming in last year with the new coach and everything, and nobody gave him a shot in hell, and that team went. What did they get? 5-5. It's same thing with Arkansas. Like those two teams were on a downtrend, and they outperformed their like marks, and I think they got something to build on
No, I
from
agree
that.
with you.
Now,
All
like,
right,
are
let's
they
move
going to
on.
win
Let's
it?
move on
No.
though. Let's move on to because we're basically talking about the SEC anyway. You want to talk about the SEC Media Day. I personally didn't listen to any of it, so I'm going to kind of let you dictate. Did you find anything interesting from the SEC Media Day from the coaches or just and anything interesting happening in your opinion that's worth talking about?
We talked about the 12-team format. Like, is it a good idea and a bad idea? I thought it was pretty cool to see like because a lot of those coaches got asked about it, and Jimbo kind of like they asked Jimbo about it, and like that's obviously one of the coaches you should ask because five seed like was the fifth ranked team last year, miss it by one game, miss it by one ranked, and a lot of people will say like they were definitely better in Notre Dame in my eyes. Um, he came out and said it was a great idea. Wish it's been approved earlier, and many things like that. Same thing with Mike Leach. You kind of forget that Mike
Oh
Leach is
man, Mike
back in.
Leach is great.
He said it's good for the program. It's terrible. I know it's great for like football. Now, one person that said it was terrible. This wasn't from the SEC media days. It was from the ACC. Dabo hates it. Dabo
Of
does not
course,
like the
Dabo
12 team.
hates it.
I thought that was just funny because that just fits Dabo.
Yeah, that
Like it's
fits
just like
Dabo.
everybody likes it. Screw it, dude.
I
Like
think that
no.
Dabo just doesn't like any sort of change. I don't think he cares whether it's good or not. I just think that he thinks change equals bad.
Yeah,
He hates because he hated the whole athletes doing the imaging stuff. Maybe it was just athletes getting paid. I don't know. Any sort of controversial NCAA topic. It seems like he's always siding with the NCAA and just whether the 12 team is siding with the NCAA or not. He does not want things to change.
yeah, because I think like the NCAA, that's their golden boy. It's Dabo. I just I have that feeling. But back to what Mike Leach is saying, he said 12 team is a huge step, but he says he wants to see it go 64 in the
I
future.
listen. I'm down with Mike Lee.
Oh,
I think the more teams, the better. 64 might be a little bit ridiculous, but
dude, like that is crazy.
that would be awesome.
64.
That's what
I
makes
know.
dude, college basketball,
Dude,
the
that
March
would make
Madness makes it.
I know. Like that's the reason why we watch March Madness, right? Is because 64 teams. Like that, the first 2 days of March Madness, you're like, holy shit! There's a game every 30 minutes. If they did that with football, the numbers would not blow out March Madness, but would beat March Madness just because how much bigger football is, and it being like an inaugural thing. It'd be crazy, dude. You would see teams that are like 8-4 get in there, like just 8-4s against like the Alabamas, and just say go have fun. Like that's awesome. It'd be really cool. Other things, Tennessee. Tennessee's in a world of hurt. They had 37 players transfer.
Yikes.
Yeah, and they're in a little quarterback battle. Dude, that program. Oh, I think they.
That sucks, dude. That's a big yikes. 37?
If
That's literally like a football team of transfers.
Oh yeah, it's just it is crazy. Like I couldn't believe like when the reporter asked him that, but like, dude, like Tennessee, like if you look into the SEC East, and we talked about earlier how it's just kind of shit. I mean, Tennessee's going to be right down there with Vandy. I
Dude,
think
are they
South
just
Carolina's
picking up like
better.
intramural kids? Like we're gonna take the
I don't know
intramural
what they're
all-star
doing.
team and start picking out those kids? Like, what do you holy crap, 37 players.
Tennessee's
37.
always in a weird spot. They're always in a weird spot because remember, like they were supposed to be good with Josh Dobbs. They were ranked. They went like 8-4. Little rebuilding. They get Jeremy Pruitt. They build up. They get like actually where they're contending in some of these games and beat some schools. And then like last year, like a lot of people thought, okay, Tennessee is going to be like a dark horse in the East and give Florida, Georgia run for their money. Where they go like 3-7, like they were terrible.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Dan,
That's
you're
just
right, dude. It's crazy to think not too long ago they had Josh Dobbs and were like a very respectable program that you
Oh,
thought
they
might
had Alvin
maintain that
Kamara.
level. Yeah, like, dude, they had some great players. Like, they had some good seasons, some good years. Obviously, nothing like insane level, but it's just crazy to see how like what's kind of transpired.
I think that just comes with the AD over there. I don't think he's too good.
I mean, dude,
Um,
there's something going on. 37 players transferring. Something is rotten in the state of Tennessee.
oh yeah, for sure. And the other thing, the media days, I thought Alabama and Georgia had really boring ones, because it was the same old, right? And their main point was them talking about like their vaccination numbers. Like Alabama's already almost 90% vaccinated and Georgia's like 85. But you kind of figured like those two schools are kind of like in the running for, to be in that SEC championship and be in like a natty contender. So like those numbers don't surprise me at all. Like, they're definitely like those players are more bought in. I did one thing Saban did say with the what is it with the new NTIs, new the player trademark things where they can make money off their name now. Bryce Young is apparently looking at, almost 7 figures already.
Damn.
Dude hasn't
Damn.
played a snap yet this year. Already looking at 7.
I mean, dude,
I mean,
I think he's a good player. I mean, you're talking about Heisman candidates. I would not be surprised because I mean he's the Bama quarterback. He's definitely a guy that I was considering picking because I mean
yeah,
we
this
saw him
is.
get his feet wet a little bit in some games here and there. I think he
Mhm.
definitely has it. And I thought that was actually pretty good for him, the fact that he got a little bit of playing time. So it's not like he's playing his very first college football snaps the start of next year for Alabama. I mean,
Yeah,
dude, it's
but
Alabama,
even if
man.
it if even if it was like Alabama's trend is so much like it's just next guy up, and it just seems like whoever takes over that starting position is like, oh, boom, instant NFL draft lock right here. But Bryce Young would be like he's already almost making 7 figures. It's just that's kind of crazy to think about. Like what the hell?
And I don't. I
Um.
think that Bill O'Brien is going to perfectly fit that Alabama team, like
Oh,
kind of
Bob.
like Sark
Yeah.
did. Um, Bill O'Brien gets a lot of crap. I think that the disagreement that I have with people is that okay, yes, Bill O'Brien made some terrible decisions as a general manager, but as a football coach, I mean, the guy is pretty damn decorated and has some very good success. You give him that Alabama team, dude, you're gonna see an offense. I think kind of like Sark's, where I mean they're just clicking. It's not hard, and I think that he's the right type of coach. Right, he doesn't make the system terribly
Yeah.
complicated for the players. He has a couple staples. I think he's exactly what that program needs, and what a guy like Young needs to really thrive in that offense. And they got some good players. You got anything else you want to add before we move on?
I was just gonna say, I thought the new coaches at the media days, especially South Carolina with Beamer, I thought he taught very well and has like a good idea going forward with that program, and also Vandy. Like I just kind of liked how
What do you even say when you're the Vandy coach? Like, yeah, we hope to win at least 2 games
well,
this year. Like,
the thing is, they're like, well, one dude was like, well, y'all don't get the recruits like as like a Alabama and Georgia, and like he kind of said in like a perfect way. He's like, well, no shit, dude. Like our school's harder to get into. Like like you have to have some like you have to be pretty academically
yeah,
um mastered at high school, I guess you could say. Like it's just harder to get
you
into.
have to
Like
have the
rather
GPA. You got to have the gotta
like
got the grades, man.
I know for like to get into Georgia, like ACT score base, if you're a football player, 17. They ain't doing it at Vandy, okay?
So
they
yeah,
ain't
just
doing that.
kick them out to the ACC or some bullshit. Get them out of the SEC, bro.
I
Last
know.
thing, I actually did want to touch on South Carolina because, like you said, I mean, we've been clowning South Carolina a lot on the pod, but I actually do kind of like some of the moves that they've been making and the look. You know, this coach got a pretty good recruiting class apparently, and I think he's been saying some of the right things. So my South Carolina clowning, I think I'm going to turn it down a couple of notches and see what happens. I'm going to give this guy a
Until the
chance.
season starts. Until the
Yeah,
season
until the
starts and
season
some
starts and they
classic
win like
olds.
3 games.
I don't know. I like that team. When what Beamer said, and like their schedule is a lot easier than they were in the past. I think that's a club that can win 6 games. I think they'll be better than Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and they'll be up there with Kentucky.
They
Kentucky's
got to be able to run the ball, and they got that really good running back to do so. So you do that, play some decent
Kevin
defense.
Harris probably should be on the first team preseason SEC. They won't give it to him because he plays for South Carolina, but like without doubt, I think he had one of the better seasons as a running back in the SEC.
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, if there's one thing that South Carolina has been able to get right, I mean, the top end players that come through that program have been very good. Like they're able to get the top end players. They just need to fill out the rest of the roster. So we'll see what
Also, I
happens.
think Beamer is more of a player's. And like Muschamp was definitely a player's coach. Like the players respect him, but Beamer seems more of like
The
the
problem with Muschamp
more
is that he was
nowadays.
like I think he tried to be too much of like a Saban light, and that only gets you so
Well,
far.
I mean that makes sense because he worked under Saban. It's like the
But
same
at
thing with
some
Kirby
point, like
Smart,
it's kind of like how with the Patriots coaches, how a lot of the ones that failed tried too hard to be like Belichick. At some
like
point, you
Patricia.
have to be your own coach, right? Yeah, exactly. Like Matt Patricia is a smart guy. He's a good coordinator. No one's going to refute that. But as a head coach, you kind of have to be your own guy. You have to be your own coach. You're
Yeah.
not going to be able to be someone else and have tons and tons of success in a super competitive environment. Let's
Well,
move
if
on, though.
Beamer's anything like his
We got
dad,
to
I'll
move
take
on. We got to
that.
move on. We've been spending way too much time on that. Cam Akers injury. We'll talk about the Cam Akers injury a little bit. We're
Yeah,
definitely going to talk
yeah.
about this on the Dynasty podcast and with the what you're going to do with your Dynasty teams and whatnot. But we might as well touch on it here as well. Cam Akers, the Rams' star running back, the guy that was supposed to come out and be very, very dominant this year. A lot of people were
Mm-hmm.
saying that he could have like a Todd Gurley kind of a season in the Sean McVay offense. Tears his Achilles, which really, really sucks, both for football and for him and for the Rams and for my Super Bowl pick.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's tough.
I'm not wavering because I still believe in McVay and I still believe in that team. It's just this was a team that with Akers, you look across the board and you're like, they really don't have a glaring hole. Now all of a sudden you got to put the running game on Darrell Henderson or one of the other guys behind him. I know they drafted Jake Funk out of Maryland. He's got the funk. They have a couple of other guys back there. All of a sudden, it's like, dude, yeah, the offense is probably still going to be pretty good under Stafford, but they become a lot more one-dimensional, it feels like, from like a preseason standpoint, because losing Akers is a big loss. He was the kind of guy that could
Mm-hmm.
easily been a top 10 running back halfway through the season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a huge loss. I still believe like running back can be replaced, but the way Cam Akers was trending last year, especially heading into the playoffs, it looked like this season coming up, especially with Stafford and just more of a hold under the offense, that he was due for a little breakout. As tough he tore his Achilles. Um, like I'm just hope he gets back on the field because the Achilles injury just seems like it just unless you're KD, like you come back, you might not even come back. It's just such a
Yeah,
weird injury.
especially at any of that feet stuff at the running back position is always very wary. It can ruin careers. I mean, we're both pulling for him. I loved Cam Akers coming out as a prospect. He's a fantastic player.
Do they get
I
Le'Veon?
what's up?
Do they sign someone? Like, do they go out there and get
The
a
reports
Le'Veon?
are saying that they won't. I mean, if I'm the Rams, I'm at least gonna bring in someone for training camp. Like, might as well.
Yeah, Todd
But
Gurley.
I think the last thing that needs to be said about the impact of this injury on the Rams season is that I don't think people realize this as much as maybe I do or some other people do. But McVay, in a lot of ways, is similar to the Shanahans, especially Kyle Shanahan, in that if his run game is working, he's just going to spam the run. I was saying this on the
Mhm.
Dynasty Pod yesterday, or not yesterday, last week, that like, dude, if he has a dominant running game, he's not going to waver from it. He's not going to get cute.
Yeah.
He's going to shove the ball down your throat until you stop it. And without Cam Akers, he might not be able to do that as much, which can really be an impact on this offense. I mean, obviously everyone's going to bring up the Gurley season, but you saw it with Akers or whoever was, I think it was Akers against the Patriots towards the end of last season, where it was like, dude, their front seven clearly couldn't stop the run. We are literally just going to run the same play over and
Mhm.
over and over again because you can't stop it. That's just what that coaching, that all those coaches that McVay was around, that's what they do, man. If you can't stop, I mean, that's rightfully so. Like, any smart coach would do that, but those guys especially, like, they're gonna find something that you're weak at and just spam it. Now all of a sudden, this offense is a lot more one dimensional, so you might not be able to do that as much.
Yeah, if they can spam it though, like it's not a total loss because if Goff was there, I'd definitely see the offense taking a huge drop off. But Stafford's used to throwing 50 times a game, a couple scores
Mm-hmm.
down. So I don't see that any problem with him. He might like that more, honestly. But, it does suck. I still think they will sign someone in free agency just to like, bring him on, like you said. I kind of like the reunion, bring back the Gurley.
Yeah, I saw a report. I don't know. I think I'd rather bring in someone else than Gurley, but you never know. All right, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna be talking about. Let's do the not make the playoffs first. The team that. So we're gonna be doing
Mm-hmm.
the team that made the playoffs last year that we do not think will make the playoffs this year. We're both gonna be picking a team. So who's gonna do it? One of us is picking the Bears, right?
Yeah, one of us has to pick the Bears. Like they're the easy one, right?
See, the thing is, the AFC, I am not really comfortable picking any of those AFC teams to not make the playoffs again. I think the popular pick would be the Steelers, but I mean, if you look behind me, I don't think you're going to see me pick the Steelers.
Yeah, I don't think you are either.
The NFC, though, I think that the Washington football team, the Bears, and the Saints are all questionable teams. I'm not ballsy enough to take the Saints. I'm doing it. I'm picking the Bears.
Okay, you get the
I've had
Bears.
enough hate on the Bears. I think the Bears are going to be a good team again, but they're going to miss the playoffs. That's it. Like, I give me the Vikings over them. Give me the freaking Giants. I don't care.
You know what? Then I'll have the balls to pick the Saints. I don't think the Saints are gonna make the playoffs. I look at it, and I'm not doubting Sean Payton, but the quarterback change is big for me too. Just also some other holes they've had in their team. But you look at it because I look at the competition around the NFC, right? The Bucks are a lock. And then you got the Seahawks, Rams, Cardinals, 49ers, who all four have a chance to make the playoffs. If the Saints come in waddling around like, a 98 mark or a 10-7 mark where, it'd be a fringe playoff team, I think three of these four teams would have better record than the Saints going in next year. And also the Packers and the Vikings for me being a playoff team. And of course the Bucks making it. I just think that leaves the Saints out on the list for me. I will say Saints will not make the playoffs.
I like it. I don't really think anything more needs to necessarily be said in that segment. I think the last thing on the Saints I want to bring up, because once again, I like the Saints. I'm not ballsy enough to bet against them. But you did point out to me that there were some decent Saints teams that ended up going like 8-8 under Sean Payton with Drew Brees, I'm pretty sure. So, like,
Yeah.
dude,
Well, they
you're
never had that defense.
yeah, I mean, now they have the defense, but now you don't have a quarterback. Like, you're telling me that you had Sean Payton and a Hall of Fame level quarterback and went 8-8, even if you didn't have a defense, right? I mean, it's happened before. It's not completely out of the question with how much the Saints were strapped for cap and draft picks and just didn't really have any room to maneuver. They're just going to be running it back with what they got, and they lost a couple of really talented players.
Also, I just think the demeanor's a little low in there in the locker room. It has to be because the situation you're in was because you sold out for a Super Bowl run and you never got there. You never even got to the Super Bowl. So
All right, let's do it. Let's get into it. Worst to first. So this is
okay.
the segment. We're going to be picking a team that finished last in their division to finish first in their division, teams that are the most likely. And we are not doing the cop-out teams. So that excludes the 49ers. Are there any other major cop-out teams? Who are the teams that finished last? So NFC East, the Eagles finished last in that one. The Lions finished last in theirs, the NFC North. NFC West, you guys finished last. And then,
Yeah.
okay, then the Niners finished last. So the Niners are a cop-out team. AFC East, obviously the Jets. The AFC North, obviously the Bengals. AFC West, who finished last there? Was it Broncos, correct?
Yeah, the Broncos.
The Broncos. And then I'm missing one. The AFC South was the Jaguars. Okay. So are we declaring any cop-outs from the AFC? I don't think so, right?
I don't think so either. I mean,
Okay.
he's picking
So
the
those
Jets.
are our list of teams. Excluding the 49ers. I'll let you pick first. Who do you want? Because I picked the Bears first. Who do you want? You get to pick from here first.
Oh man. Oh man. I think I know who I'm going with.
Who are you taking?
Oh yeah. I'm gonna go AFC South. I'm
Damn, you
going
took my
Jags.
team. You took my team.
I'm going Jags, dude. I took their over this year. I believe in T Law. I believe he's the truth. I like Urban Meyer. They spent some money in this free agency. I think they'll be a definitely competitive team, and T Law has that kind of like that Andrew Luck vibe to him, where you instantly become a more of like a fringe playoff team with just how good he is and how much better he makes everybody around him. And especially you play in a favorable division where like there's not a true gauntlet of a team you have to run into. I'm going Jags.
Oh man, I have no idea who to pick here now because that was my team and I was praying you wouldn't take him. I think
You
I'm
thought I was going to take
deciding.
the Falcons.
I don't know what you were going to take. I'm deciding between probably the Eagles just because you play in the NFC East and telling me that you
Yeah.
can accurately predict the NFC East is just false.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
and
Win
honestly,
7
the
games.
Broncos. I'm going to go with the Broncos, even though I think that they're a year away and they aren't going to come in first. They're in a really tough division. But if you were to ask me to pick who is the strongest team out of those teams that we listed, take out the Jaguars and the Niners, I think it's the
Mhm.
Broncos. They have a defense that I do think is at that level, that is a possible playoff level. I actually do think that there'll be a playoff level defense, especially with Vic Fangio at the helm.
Yeah. I think
The
so.
problem is that I don't think that Vic Fangio is going to be that guy to lead them there necessarily. I just think that he's, at the end of the day, he's a coordinator, a head coach. They're going to have a good defense. The offense, though, is that your offensive line is still suspect. I'm not believing that offensive line. And you don't have a quarterback. So those are two big factors in why your team might not be in the playoffs. I like the defense. I think that's a team that could be an 8-9 or a 9-8 football team.
Mm-hmm.
But to realistically expect anything more without major strides from their offensive line and like Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon just being insane, almost having like the Jets mold under Rex Ryan, where you have a nasty defense and you're able to just run the football up and down the field, and then Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock can game manage for you. Okay, that's the scenario that you probably need in Denver for that team to be that playoff team and even make an AFC championship like the Jets did. Do I see that happening? No. And out of all those teams, which team do I think has the best chance of making the playoffs and first in their division? It's the Broncos. Book it.
I mean, their secondary is going to be filthy next year.
The thing is that they're just not going to be first in their division. I think there's you could make the playoffs maybe if you get lucky and just play well. And like I said, those things happen. I still don't think you're finishing over the Chiefs though. Thing is,
that's tough.
what about in a playoff game? You get a couple plays from your nasty defense. All of a sudden, like one game, maybe you have a shot. I don't think over the course of the season you're doing better than the Chiefs unless Mahomes dies. That's really it.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the three teams above them in this division, they got to play 6 games against their offenses. I know their defense is going to be pretty nasty, but like the Chiefs offense is always sick. The Raiders offense can always put up points whenever. And, the Chargers offense is definitely more on the come up, especially to see how good Herbert is. The one thing about the Broncos offense is, though, if, I would lean probably Bridgewater. That's what I would do. But, you just drafted the running back, which, you have to love him if you traded up for him.
I love Javonte. I think that was a phenomenal pick.
Yeah.
Their first 3 picks I thought were great because they picked up Quinn Meinerz in the 3rd, the Mountain Man center. I liked him a lot at the Senior Bowl. I'll pull up a picture of him for those on the tube. This guy is awesome. We've talked about him before, but maybe you weren't there.
Jerry Jeudy, besides the drops, you see it. He has the potential there.
Sutton back too.
Yeah, and you get Cortland Sutton back. Got no Font. I mean, they definitely have like the weapons.
Take a peep at this dude. Look at this guy. He's the Ezekiel Elliott of offensive linemen. He doesn't care.
Beast.
That gut, dude. He's rocking the gut, the crop top, no matter what. And he literally lifts logs in the offseason. He lifted logs for his workouts. He's a tree guy. Dude's awesome. You can't not root for that guy.
No, I mean, I like him. It's just, the AFC West is tough.
Dude, but it's a tough division. But whoever their GM is, because I know that they switched their GM from Elway to a new guy. I thought he had a home run of a draft. Just, we're going to come out of this draft with the most talented players because they did pass up on a quarterback, but you get Patrick Surtain, who obviously we like J.C. Horn more, but that doesn't mean that I don't think that Patrick Surtain isn't a very good player.
Yeah, he was my number 2.
Javonte Williams. I mean, dude, I love Javonte Williams. I think he's an awesome running back. I liked Quinn Meinerz. They picked up Jamar Johnson, that safety out of Indiana, right? He was Indiana? Or was he Nebraska?
Yeah. He was Indiana.
I thought he's a phenomenal player. A little snag in like the 5th round. I thought that was a nice little pickup. So I thought that the Broncos, dude, if they hit on a lot of those picks, which I think they did, they might not be as far away as you think.
It just comes down to quarterback play for me. They had a quarterback. You have the worst quarterback in your division.
Yeah, in a division of at least I think, good quarterbacks. People, you'll get your Derek
Okay.
Carr haters, but I think that Derek Carr is a pretty good quarterback. And I mean, no one's going to refute the fact that Mahomes and Justin Herbert are pretty good at football.
Well, the question is, do you compare this Broncos team to possibly a Titans team from 2 years ago when Tannehill took over and really took off? Like maybe Bridgewater finds that kind of life in Denver.
No, I like my Jets analogy better, bud. Just trying to steal my team analogy there for the team that I picked. I see how it is. What the hell?
I mean, I just don't see Rex Ryan on this team.
All of a sudden, you
No, I
see a
like it.
report: Broncos hire Rex Ryan. That would be
He's
electric,
back.
dude.
I mean,
Off topic here. I love Rex Ryan, and that Hard Knocks, I think, with the Jets was one of the best Hard Knockses that has ever come out. Dude, he's just like, let's go play New York Jets football. And he's like, let's eat a snack. And then the meeting ends. Like, dude, hell yeah, get that snack, Rex. Let's go.
he used to love them snacks when he was fat. Who has Hard Knocks this year? Is it Dallas?
Is it Dallas? I think it might be Dallas. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Dallas.
Oh, that's so boring.
What do you mean it's boring? That's great. We're going to get the inside look at the watermelon smashing.
Oh, yeah, true. I mean, that's honestly, I'm down for that. Okay. I'm bought back in. Let's go, Dallas.
Yeah, the Cowboys. No, that's a great team. That's an interesting team to have it as. All those Cowboys players are going to get so hyped for fantasy leagues now. That just the Hard Knocks hype. All right, last segment. So we did team that made the playoffs that's not going to make it. We did this last year. This is kind of the no-brainer segment. Pick a team to just they're not making the playoffs. And we last year we excluded the Jaguars. So you can't pick
Now they're worst to
the
first.
Texans. Well, like we just excluded the very last team in the league. Which I ended up picking the Jets, which was like a pretty damn close second. Not to toot my own horn or anything. Steed, I'll give you this pick too. You have to pick a team. They are not making the playoffs. Go. That's not the Texans, of course.
Ooh, not making the playoffs? I want to choose a juicer. Like,
I've got my team. If you need me to go, I'm going to go.
you go.
This one goes out to my favorite fan base in the world. The fan base that I I give so much respect to. A classy organization. But there's one thing that this team doesn't do, and that's win playoff games. Fun fact, the text message was invented before the last time this team won a playoff game. And that is my boys, the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals will not make the playoffs, and if miraculously they do, they are not winning a playoff game. Bengals fans, you guys love me so much for my outlook on Joe Burrow because of Zach Taylor. I'm not doubling down. I'm not tripling down. I am like quadrupling down on my Bengals hate. You are not going to be in the playoffs. Book it.
Oh, man. It's crazy to think that there has never been a text message throughout the history of this world that has said, hey, did you see the Bengals win that playoff game today?
That wasn't just a joke, like a serious message.
Yeah, like, so funny. I'm ruffling around it. This is an easy pick for me, but I wanted to do a pick that's like a little spicy and just piss off a lot of people. You know what? I'll just say them. I'm going to go with the Carolina Panthers. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I like the way they're
taking the Thurs.
Yeah, I mean, I like the direction they're going. I still think this is a team a year away, and also we need to find out if Sam Darnold's legit or not. In a new uniform, new setting. I like them to improve from where they were last year, a 5-11 team. But I also like the Falcons to improve. I like the Saints to
Yeah,
still
of course you
be.
do. You should
I
have just
mean,
taken the Falcons as the team to not make the playoffs.
and then they wouldn't make the playoffs. But then,
Unless Fat Nicolas Cage, their coach, is going to steal he's going to steal the Super Bowl. He's not going to steal the Declaration of Independence.
I mean, he could steal the Super Bowl. I'm down. Give me that trophy. But
Dude, I
I
just
should have picked
imagine
Packers.
that speech comes out. He sits in front of the team. Listen, guys, we're going to steal the Super Bowl. Like,
I mean, I'd be
who's with
down.
me? Kyle
I mean, I
Pitts is
know.
in there. Fuck yeah.
Shit, we don't even play a game. We could just
Even
steal it.
even though Cameron Jordan said I'm light in the ass, we're stealing the Super Bowl.
No, screw Cam Jordan, dude. All he does is talk crap. Yeah, I mean, but the Thurs are my team not to make it. I think that's pretty, I think that's a team that's on a good direction. But, no, not just there yet. I almost said the Cowboys.
Wow, they're the favorite to win their division.
Yeah, but I didn't. I could just
I'm
see Dak.
surprised you said the Thurs because I know me and you both really like Matt Rule.
Well,
And
I'm just
I'm
saying,
not.
not to make the playoffs, I don't see them as a playoff team. I like them. I like
I
where
don't
they're
see him as a
headed.
playoff team either. But dude, if J.C. Horn is like that freaking lockdown kind of guy, which I think he is, and then you got that good little defense put together, you got some weapons up front.
All right, screw it. I'll choose a different team. This is a team that should that has been getting so much heavy preseason, and I think I've been more down on them as you are. That's the Chargers. I'm going to say the Chargers are not going to make the playoffs. I think Herbert's going to have a little bit of a sophomore slump. First year head coach in Staley, I think is going to be he's going to have to still figure out some more holes on this Chargers team, especially on the defense. Like they lost Melvin Ingram, who y'all picked up, by the way. Great, good little sign for the Steelers. On top of that, what's their offense going to be? I know this team caught fire at the end, but we've seen teams catch fire at the end and then just kind of just burn themselves out of a good draft spot and then come out next season and be mediocre. I think that's where this team lands. Chargers do not believe the media hype. Don't believe their hype. They're not making the playoffs. Raiders will finish before them.
If there's a team that has been cursed, it's definitely the Chargers at losing winnable football games. We'll see if that one improves. But I don't know, kind of like you said, I actually like the Chargers a little bit more than you do. But their problem to me was a similar problem with the Cowboys recently, in my opinion. I've been saying it for a while, is that yeah, you have the top half of your roster figured out. They have for a while, and a large part under Phillip Rivers. But what really separates the great organizations from just being good is what do you get out of the bottom half of your roster? What do you get out of your special teams? That when your nickel corner gets banged up, who's coming in? Oh, when you need to rotate a pass rusher, who's coming in? Right? Oh, I get a middle linebacker hurt. Who's stepping up? You look at teams my Steelers have been doing this for years, but the Patriots, the Ravens, right? Any really good team. And obviously there are teams look at the Bucks last year. They didn't really have a ton of injury problems, so they were able to have success.
Brady played on a torn, what was it, MCL the whole year? Just saying. But
okay, yeah, he played on a torn MCL apparently. These kinds of teams, they're able to get really good, solid production out of the back end of their roster, and those dudes are completely bought into the team. I felt like I haven't gotten that out of the Chargers ever. I really feel, and I think it partly comes from the top down, where it's dude, you have a great ran organization, you have a really good process, which then filters all the way down into the back end of your roster. When you have a really clean, calculated, and efficient process of clear flowing communication, it trickles down to the back end of your roster. Is that going to change now under a first-time head coach? Maybe it can.
Maybe it can. I like Staley. I think he's good. I think he'll have success there at some point. I just don't think it'll be next season. What they remind me of, and maybe it's not as much hype as the Browns got when everybody immediately said, "Oh, Browns are winning the Super Bowl" a couple years ago. But it's just that kind of hype with the second-year quarterback. Oh, new head coach. Oh, like they found their team in the late season when they were winning all these games. Like it's a different built team now. They're ready to make that run. I don't think so. Like I think you're going to see a little bit of drop back. You get some pressure on Herbert now. You are the guy. He's going to fall back a little bit, fall back to earth. And on top of that, it's tough when you got to play in this division where you have to face up against that Broncos defense twice a year. You got to play the Raiders, who are always, going to try to knock you in the mouth twice a year. And of course, you got to face Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes twice a year. I just don't think they're there yet, while everybody else kind of does.
Yeah, like that is one of the more low key, really tough divisions in football.
I mean, it's probably number 3 behind the NFC West and the AFC North.
Because I think a lot of people hate the Raiders a lot more than we do. That we realize
I think the Raiders are good.
Yeah, I mean their defense.
They're a playoff team if they have a defense.
Yeah, I think that we both realize that the Raiders. I mean, you just look at the fact that they gave the Chiefs a run for their money in 2 games, right? They honestly should have won 2 games against that team.
Well, they beat them the first time. They should have swept them easily. Yeah. Derek Carr had a very great last minute drive to set
if they had a defense, right? If they had a defense, and Patrick Mahomes wasn't able to just carve them up completely that second game, yeah, they win that game.
Yeah, that was a crazy game too. That was a good Sunday nighter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for some Raiders football though. John Gruden, my boy, I know they're on the hot seat a little bit, but I still believe in my guys. But that's going to be it for the episode. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Please do us a huge favor. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button, hit the comment button, follow us on the social medias. We really appreciate it. But that's going to be all from us. Peace out.